The first lie I ever told was written on my body. I learned to walk and talk in a boy's skin, but I knew, with a certainty deeper than bone, that it was a disguise. For me, that fundamental truth of who I was felt like a cruel joke, a mistake nature had laughingly foisted upon me. While other boys were learning to throw punches, I was memorizing the delicate drape of a stolen dress, the way its fabric whispered rightness against my skin. A feeling so pure, it clashed violently with the world's expectations. By the time I understood the word for what I was, a lifetime of those secret, sacred moments had already collided with a terrifying fear of the future. So I surrendered. I buried the girl, forced the boy to his feet, and presented his hollow facade to the world. But inside, where it mattered, only I knew the truth. I was a girl. Yet, in secret, I would borrow a skirt and blouse from my sister's closet. Those stolen, sacred moments were my salvation. As the fabric settled on my shoulders and hips, a profound tension would ease, any fear draining away in a wave of exhilarating rightness. Dressing as Emily, a name I'd claimed for my true self, lifted my spirits, granting me the strength to maintain the charade for the outer world. By 14, the stakes felt lethal. To be caught felt like a catastrophe that would crush me under the weight of the entire world's judgment. So I quit. For 4 long months, I tried to bury those desires, to lock Emily away in the darkest corner of my mind. It was a futile battle. The lure of a mere scrap of clothing, the dreams it carried, became an irresistible pull. Once again, I found myself in my room, becoming the flower that would never bud. That day, I had chosen a blue skirt and a pink blouse. My hair was pulled into a ponytail, my face awkwardly painted with blusher and lipstick. Standing in a pair of black heels, I was lost in the reflection, searing the image of Emily into my memory, when the door creaked open. My mother's reflection materialized in the mirror over my shoulder, a sight that sent a violent chill down my spine. I braced for the inevitable, scolding, grounding, a look of pure hatred. But then I saw it, a smile playing on her lips. She sat on my bed, her calm eyes taking in my clumsy presentation, yet her gentle smile never wavered. "When you were younger, I thought it was just curiosity," she began, her voice soft. "But now it's obvious this is more than that. Maybe a lot more. Care to tell me about it?" A flood of confessions jammed in my throat. I stood there, frozen and exposed, my pride shattered. How could I voice the words? How could I tell her the clothes were merely a symptom, not the cause? Her calm gaze held me, and only that unwavering smile kept me from bolting. "Maybe you should change," she suggested softly. "Maybe you'll be able to tell me then. I'll be in the family room." I never cleaned up so quickly. I scrubbed away the makeup, showered as if I could wash away the shame, and slipped back into the uniform of jeans and a shirt. With a deep, steadying breath, I walked into the family room. It was just her and me now. My father, a reservist killed in Iraq, was a ghost in that space. She and I had recovered, but now she knew, or at least suspected, that I had no desire to follow in his footsteps. I wanted to follow in hers. She sat in her favorite chair, watching as I settled on the couch. Words of denial were on my lips, a last, desperate defense. But we both knew they would be a lie. The truth, it seemed, had been transparent to everyone but a willfully blind man. "I'm sure you'd love to tell me it was just a lark," my mother said, her voice cutting through my fragile denials. "But it's not. It can't be. Not when you hide. Hiding tells me you're scared and ashamed, and if you're ashamed, then it's more than a game. So, I want you to tell me why." Her gaze was unwavering. "If you don't know, just tell me that." The dam broke. As soon as I opened my mouth, a torrent spilled out, a chaotic flood of hate and anger, desperate desire and crushing dismay, all punctuated by ragged sobs and tears. I confessed everything. I didn't just want to wear the clothes. I wanted to be a girl, a real girl. I wanted the makeup, the perfume, the heels. I wanted to giggle with friends, to live a life that felt authentic, to become a woman, just like her. By the time my voice gave out, I was soaked in sweat and tears, a nervous wreck waiting for her to recoil, to throw me out. I was certain I was the worst son a mother could ever have. Silence filled the room, thick and heavy. She had listened without a single word, nod, or any indication she understood. But then she moved. She came to me, pulled me into her arms, and held me tightly against her breast, wiping my tears away with a gentle thumb. No words, just the familiar, sacred comfort of her embrace. "We'll talk about this later, okay?" she whispered. "Okay, Mom." The following days were an agony of anxious hours, my mind racing with what she might do or say. Every girl I saw became an object of my fierce, secret envy, most of them blissfully unaware of the feminine gift I would have given anything to possess. I held the envy and fear inside, presenting the world with the stoic mask of just one of the guys, until Thursday. After school, Mom met me at the door. Without a word, she took me to my room. On the bed lay several department store packages. "I bought these for you," she said, her voice calm but firm. "But don't try them on yet. Tomorrow, after school, we will see about making you into the girl you think you are. I'm giving them to you now so you can look. I'll help you get dressed. Okay?" "Okay!" The word burst from me, fueled by a hope so sharp it was almost painful. I eagerly tore into the bags after she left. The first held a skirt and blouse, a delicate slip, and panties, accompanied by a small, hopeful bra. The second revealed a pair of shoes, a bulky panty brief, and some small pink boxes. The third contained pantyhose, cheap but glittering jewelry, and new makeup. I ached to try everything on right then, but I restrained myself. Mom was offering me a lifeline. I wouldn't risk snapping it. The next day dragged, each minute an eternity. By the final bell, I was a bundle of raw, hopeful nerves. This time, I wouldn't be a clumsy imitation. I would finally see the girl I held inside, brought to life with expert help. Mom met me at the door again. In my room, she told me to strip. Once I was down to my briefs, she smoothed a cool, depilatory cream over my limbs, washing away the thin, betraying hair I'd begun to grow. Wrapped in a towel afterwards, she handed me a pair of panties. Once I had them on, she led me to her room and sat me at her vanity. The ritual began. She wound my hair in rollers, big and small, their pins clicking softly against my scalp. Then, she handed me a new bottle of foundation, guiding my hands as I used 2 fingers to spread it evenly. A dusting of powder followed, transforming me into a ghostly statue until I brushed away the excess, revealing a face that was suddenly smooth, soft, and unmistakably different. I loved it. Then came the eyeshadow, a dab of blue, then a soft tan, blended with a tiny sponge. The eyeliner was a challenge, my hand trembling as I drew a wavering line along my upper lids. The brown gel glistened before drying solid. The lower lash line was harder, requiring the shaky precision of a pencil. The fear of poking my own eye out was real, but the result, eyes dramatically outlined in dark brown, was worth the tremor in my hands. "That's enough for now," Mom declared, her voice all business. "Let's get you dressed." I expected the bra, but instead she opened 2 small pink boxes. Inside each nestled a soft, flesh-toned form, prosthetic breasts. With a careful, measuring eye, she marked my skin and attached one over each of my own, the gentle weight a strange, thrilling pull against my chest. The idea that I could now need a bra sent a jolt of pure, undiluted joy through me. She handed me the bra then, a practical white garment, and showed me how to put it on, adjusting the straps until my new forms had a convincing lift, pushing forward in a soft, real-looking curve. Next came the bulky panty brief, a cunning garment that sculpted hints of hips and rounded out my bottom. Once I had it on, I pulled up the pantyhose, delighting in the whisper-smooth feel against my newly hairless skin, an involuntary shiver of pleasure running through me. Mom grinned at my reaction. She helped me into the slip, easing it over the rollers on my head, and then went to the closet. Instead of the skirt and blouse I'd seen, she brought out a dress, a pale green sheath with a round neckline and a back zipper. She guided it over my head, careful of my hair, then zipped me up, the fabric closing around me like a second skin. Leading me back to the vanity, she began the final transformation, removing the rollers and brushing out my hair. She kept me facing away from the mirror, building the anticipation until it was a physical pressure in my chest. With a final spray of hairspray, a deft application of blusher, and the simple black heels slipped onto my feet, she was done. She attached clip-on earrings, fastened a necklace, and slipped rings onto my fingers, before finally turning me toward the full-length mirror. The sight stole my breath. I didn't recognize the person staring back. As I stood there, utterly captivated, Mom pressed a lipstick into my hand. My hand was steady as I drew on the soft reddish pink, the final defining stroke. My hair fell in soft waves, with bangs swept elegantly to one side. The dress hugged the new shape she had given me, cinching at a waist I didn't know I had and flaring over the hips, ending mid-thigh. My legs, always so knobby in my eyes, looked sleek and shapely in the heels. "Just what do we call you?" Mom asked, a knowing smile on her face. "I'm sure you've picked out a name by now." "Emily," I whispered, the name feeling more real than it ever had. "Is this what you had in mind all those times you dressed up?" "Oh, yes." "I'm glad for you, honey. Now let's go out on the patio and have some tea. It's too nice a day to stay inside." But the old terror, the fear of exposure, gripped me. "You said you wanted to be a girl," she stated, her tone leaving no room for argument. "I helped you look like one, and you do. Girls don't stay in the house all the time, dear. I insist. You'll be perfectly safe. We can even do your nails out there." She opened the door and stepped out, waiting. Heart hammering, I took my first step outside my room as Emily. I followed her to the kitchen, carrying glasses while she gathered the iced tea and her nail kit. Stepping onto the patio felt like crossing a frontier. The sun was warm, the air fresh, and the familiar bite of terror was sharp in my throat. Swallowing hard, I sat beside her. For almost an hour, we stayed there. Mom applied nail tips, filing them to a soft, rounded point, and painting them to match my lips. Joy and fear warred within me, a potent mix that intensified when I heard the neighbors in their yard. Jessica, a girl from my class, lived there. The mere possibility of her seeing me like this was terrifying. But every time I moved my hands, the gleam of fresh polish caught the light and sent a shiver of pure ecstasy down my spine. This was it. This was what I had craved. To be truthful, the boy I used to be had vanished. The reflection in the glass door, the girl sitting calmly having tea, was just a budding 14-year-old girl. I tried to hide my overwhelming excitement, sipping my tea, but Mom saw right through me. "I can tell this is what you wanted all along, Emily," she said, her gaze soft and knowing. "You simply can't stop smiling, can you?" Mom observed, her eyes crinkling at the corners. "Now that we're in agreement about you being a lovely girl, you're coming grocery shopping with me. It'll be good experience, and I'll be right there with you." "The store? Me? Mom, I can't." Panic fluttered in my chest. "I'll get you a purse. Go fetch your wallet and lipstick." Her tone brooked no argument. She handed me a simple white purse and marched to the front door, me trailing in her wake like a nervous shadow. I dared a quick, frantic glance outside before scurrying to the car, slouching deep into the passenger seat until we were safely out of the neighborhood. Mom just smiled. In the store lot, she parked, and I grabbed a loose cart, following her inside with my heart in my throat, praying I wouldn't see a familiar face. We navigated the aisles without incident, and I began, foolishly, to relax. Then Mom nodded toward a shelf. Grab a box of those sanitary items, would you, Emily? Heat flooded my cheeks, but I did it, adding the box to our cart with a furtive glance around. We turned the corner into baked goods, and that's when I heard it. Linda! Linda! We both turned. It was Mrs. Miller, a neighbor from down the block, dressed in her usual impeccable style. Full makeup, freshly styled hair, a chic dress, and enough jewelry to sparkle under the fluorescent lights. Hello, Connie. Linda, dear. And who is this charming young lady? This is Emily. Emily, this is Barbara Miller, an old friend. Mrs. Miller shook my hand with a firm, confident grip, then proceeded to invite us, both of us, to the annual ladies' party at the community center the following Saturday night. I knew this event. Mom always went, describing it as a fun, girls-only affair until the men were allowed in later. To my utter horror, Mom accepted immediately, telling a beaming Mrs. Miller that we would both be delighted to attend. As Mrs. Miller walked away, I stared at Mom, my eyes wide with terror. Well, I could hardly say you couldn't come, could I? That would be unforgivably rude. You saw no sign she knew, did you? No, but you'll be fine, Emily. We just need to find you a party dress and maybe get your hair styled. All the way home, my mind raced. Why had she done it? Was this some elaborate scheme to embarrass me? I dismissed the thought instantly. Her complicity was complete. She truly believed I could do this. That thought was only slightly less terrifying than the alternative. We pulled into the driveway. I slung my purse over my shoulder and gathered bags in my arms, the picture of domestic help, when Jessica walked around the corner of the house. My blood ran cold. Without a word, she took 2 bags from my arms, giving no indication of recognition. I managed a strained smile, a lump the size of a small cow lodged in my throat, and followed Mom inside with Jessica on our heels. We set the bags on the table. I prayed she would leave, but she stayed, smiling between Mom and me. Jessica, this is Emily. She'll be staying with us on and off for a while. Hi, Jessica chirped. It'll be so nice to have another girl my age around here sometimes. I was mute, terrified my voice would betray me. But as Jessica looked at me, her eyes widened in dawning comprehension, her hands flying to her mouth. She knew. Emily and I were just about to go find her a party dress for the annual shindig at the community center, Mom said, her voice impossibly calm. Maybe you'd like to come along. I wouldn't miss it, Jessica exclaimed. I'll go tell my mom. She dashed out. I whirled on Mom, feeling utterly betrayed, but she raised a hand to stop me, just as Jessica bounded back in. Jessica, Emily, sit down, please. We both obeyed, looking at her. Then she laid it all bare, telling Jessica exactly who I was and asking, point blank, if she could keep my secret. I wanted the floor to swallow me whole. You bet, Jessica said without a moment's hesitation. I don't really get why you'd want to be a girl, but since I'm the only girl on this street, it'll be awesome to have someone to actually do things with. Your secret is safe with me, I swear it, Jessica promised, her eyes wide with sincerity. Good, Mom replied, her tone firm but kind. But I need you to be careful, Jessica. Don't put Emily in any situation where her secret could be at risk. If that happened, I'd have to speak with your mother, and I know you don't want that. As far as you and the entire world are concerned, Emily is a girl, just like you, who sometimes stays with us. Now, let's go find her a party dress. With Jessica by my side, the paralyzing fear of discovery melted away. Her bubbly, chatty manner was infectious, and soon I found myself mirroring her speech patterns, the higher cadence feeling both eerie and strangely natural. I'd assumed we would just buy a dress, but the process was far more intricate. First, Mom steered me into a lingerie shop for a formidable garment she called a waist nipper, which sculpted my torso into a new, smoother silhouette. Then, in the department store, She added a package of panties and 2 new bras to our basket before we even glanced at dresses. Jessica eagerly pulled styles she liked from the racks. Mom added her own selections, and I finally found one I truly loved. When I held it up, they both immediately piled their own choices into my arms. Soon, I was in a changing booth with Mom, trying on each one. The winner, unanimously, was Jessica's pick. A soft blue A-line dress with cap sleeves and a round neck that fell just below my knees. It twinkled with every movement, tiny metallic threads catching the light. Staring at my reflection, I saw a young girl ready for her first grand event, and I couldn't stop smiling. After I changed, we went home, and Mom invited Jessica to join us for the party, an offer she accepted instantly. Jessica stayed at my house until late, and in that time, we bonded deeply, as only girls can. I found myself telling her things I hadn't even been able to voice to Mom, my deepest doubts and desires. She never flinched, never called me weird. The next morning, I wore the skirt and blouse to church with Mom, but the moment we returned home, I had to change back. Removing the breast forms was the hardest part, not physically, but emotionally. I'd already grown attached to their weight and shape, to the person they helped me see in the mirror. Jessica seemed disappointed, even though she understood the necessity. Our walks to school transformed. Now it felt like 2 girls walking together, discussing outfits, shoes, and jewelry, with her offering me style advice. Even when I was in my male clothes, she set that aside, becoming my friend and my coach. When school let out for the summer that Thursday, I thought we had all the time in the world to find shoes. Jessica just laughed. "Sometimes 2 months isn't enough to find the perfect outfit," she declared. 2 months. The reality of the ongoing commitment sent a fresh thrill through me. Mrs. Miller even sent a lovely note, saying she looked forward to seeing me again, a gesture that felt wonderfully validating. That Thursday afternoon, finding Mom wasn't home, I went to my room and shed my boy clothes. I slipped into cut-off jeans, a t-shirt, and the plain white bra with the forms nestled in the cups, finishing with white panties, anklet socks, and gym shoes. I applied a light layer of foundation and powder, just enough to look more like Jessica, more natural. I pulled my hair into a ponytail, brushed out some bangs, and headed to the kitchen for a soda. I was just opening the refrigerator when I saw Jessica standing at the patio door, ready to knock. I let her in, noting she was dressed almost identically to me, but her expression was serious. "My parents decided to go to the party, Emily," she said without preamble. "That means they'll see you and your mom together." "So?" I asked, my stomach tightening. "So who are you?" she pressed. "A daughter? A niece? A family friend? You need an answer. Besides, you look so much like your mom, I doubt anyone would believe you're not her daughter, including my mother. You need to tell her the truth before the party, or she might ask a question you can't answer at the worst possible moment." The truth of Jessica's words was still hanging in the air when Mom walked in. Jessica quickly laid out her concerns and our shared conclusion. "You're absolutely right, Jessica," Mom agreed, her lawyer's mind already clicking into gear. "They should know, but I want Emily to be a little better presented, and I need to talk with her first. Ask your mother if she'd like to do a little potluck tonight. We can grill some burgers." After Jessica left, Mom turned to me, her expression shifting into the focused, analytical mode I knew so well. "Emily, I need you to be straight with me," she began. "Do you truly want the neighbors to know? Because if not, you need to tell me right now." My hands flew instinctively to my hair, then dropped, one resting on each of the soft forms beneath my shirt. The thought of giving them up was a physical ache. "But if we tell them," she continued, her voice gentle but direct, "we might as well tell everyone. A secret like this can't be held tightly once it's out. People slip. They might use he when you're standing there in a dress, or worse, someone could use it against you in anger. I trust them, and I don't believe they'll cause trouble. But if they do, it's better to face it here, in a controlled setting, than at a crowded party. If they accept you, We can ask for their discretion. Do you understand what I'm saying? I understand, Mom, I whispered, my voice trembling. It's just, I missed having these, even after just a few days. Now that I have the whole summer, I thought I could. The phone rang, cutting me off. Mom answered, and after a brief conversation, she confirmed, they'll be over at 6. The whirlwind of events, my desperate desire clashing with the hard reality of exposure, had driven me to the brink. Every step forward felt like another layer of my old fear was being stripped away. The thrill of the breast forms, their weight and shape feeling so inherently mine, had been the final, undeniable stake in my awakening. My thoughts were a chaotic storm when Mom took my arm and led me to my room. Let's get you ready, she said, her tone leaving no room for argument. She helped me reattach the forms, their familiar weight and immediate comfort. Then she watched as I applied my makeup, just foundation, powder, blusher, and lipstick, keeping it simple. As she brushed my hair, pulling it back with a band, she expertly trimmed my bangs. Left to dress, I chose the khaki shorts and a green shell top, leaving it untucked. The shorts were a little tighter in the seat, but the top fit perfectly. Once I had my ankle socks and gym shoes on, I found the nail kit and waited for Mom in the kitchen. She painted my nails a soft plum color, and as they dried, I helped her set the table, my movements careful. When Jessica and her parents arrived an hour later, I was on the patio sipping an iced tea. Jessica's mother gave me a polite, appraising nod. Her father offered a warm smile as he set a dish on the table. Jessica joined me immediately, and as our mothers arranged the food, we helped, moving between the kitchen and patio. Not once did they question who I was. The only acknowledgement was Jessica's occasional, conspiratorial wink. Dinner was a quiet, ordinary miracle. Jessica tells us you're going to the party at the club on Saturday, her mother remarked casually. Do you have your dress all ready? I described the soft blue, twinkling fabric, my voice steady. Not a single word was said about my appearance. I was treated with the same easy familiarity as Jessica. After they left, Mom revealed she'd spoken to them beforehand. The relief was dizzying. My delight at existing outside my room as Emily had been thrilling from the start. But this was different. I had stepped off the cliff of my secret and found solid ground. The acceptance sent my spirit soaring, lost in the enchanting swirl of a dream I'd never dared believe could come true. That night, wrapped in the soft nylon of my nightgown, I lay in bed gleefully tracing the curves of my breasts, their presence a promise of the summer ahead. All thought of danger blissfully forgotten. My dreams were a royal fantasy. I was the maiden fitted for the glass slipper, a princess in silks. The magic carpet of my subconscious swept me from girlhood to womanhood, to becoming a wife and mother. The alarm clock was a shrill intruder, dragging me back to a room with tan wallpaper and clunky, boyish furniture. Reality confirmed itself in the bathroom, as I stood easing my bladder, holding myself not with disgust, but a profound dismay. This, I thought, would always be there, a permanent, mocking sign. I put on the khaki shorts and green shell again. In the kitchen, a list of chores awaited. I worked through them methodically. Turning the page, I found Mom's final instructions. Do your nails, take a long, hot bubble bath, shave everywhere you need it. Be as pretty as you can when I get home. The directive was my command. I filled the tub, liberally pouring in bubble bath, and sank into the hot, oily water. I shaved with a new, deliberate care, raising a leg just like I'd seen women do on television, a grin spreading as I erased every trace of hair. Wrapped in a robe, I sat at Mom's vanity, removed the old polish, and applied a new coat of pink lacquer infused with crushed pearls. By the time my nails were dry, I felt feminine to my very core. Slipping into panties, a bra, a skirt, and blouse, I was barefoot on the patio when Jessica found me. We were relaxing in the sun when Mrs. Miller appeared. I rang the bell, she said, and thought you might be out here. I fetched her a glass of iced tea, and the three of us sat basking. I know this might seem forward, Mrs. Miller began, but my grandsons will be in town for the party, and I was wondering if you would allow one of them to escort you. And, Jessica, perhaps you would be so kind as to accompany the other. That would be very nice, Mrs. Miller, Jessica answered for both of us, before I could even form a thought. We'll look forward to it. Mom walked out just then, and we filled her in. After Mrs. Miller and Jessica had left, I turned to Mom, my anxiety spiking. I never agreed to this, I emphasized. Jessica did. Now I'm stuck with a date I never asked for. Mom didn't even flinch. Instead, she revealed we both had appointments at her salon for what she termed the works. We shared a light dinner, the air thick with unspoken anticipation. The next morning, she instructed me to go barefaced. I felt exposed, stripped raw, but her insistence was a steel thread. Just past noon, we drove to the salon. I'd never stepped foot in a place like this before. I followed Mom inside. She gave our names, and in a flash, a young woman took my arm, whisking me into a small booth where she handed me a heavy terry-cloth robe. I slipped it on over my panties, clinging to that last thin layer of secrecy. When I emerged, Mom was there, similarly robed. They seated us in chairs that reclined, and a cool, mud-like mask was smoothed over my face. Slices of lemon were placed over my eyes, and for an hour we lay there in silence. When the attendant peeled it off, my hand flew to my cheek. My skin felt like silk. Next, Mom and I endured the sauna, just the two of us. Then, a shocking plunge into an icy pool. We dried off and moved to the main salon. Side by side, we underwent a metamorphosis. My nail polish was removed, replaced with acrylics filed to a graceful oval. The sting of tweezing made my eyes water, but as the tiny hairs collected in my lap, I felt a strange pride. My hair, once a mundane sandy brown, was transformed into a softer blonde, cut and permed into gentle waves. The makeup artist worked in silence. I couldn't see the result, but I watched Mom. She looked radiant. When the artist finally turned me to the mirror, I gasped. Staring back was a girl I'd only ever imagined, doe-eyed with auburn waves, eyebrows arched and refined. My lips were a chaste red pink, perfectly shaped. I was speechless. Mom beamed at me. We changed, paid the bill, and drove home, my spirits soaring. By the time we arrived home, the dread over Mrs. Miller's grandson had evaporated. I was a girl, through and through. I itched to change immediately, but Mom insisted on a snack. Finally, I retreated to my room. I started with the blue satin panties, then the padded panty brief, the sheer pantyhose, and the waist nipper. The pale blue bra came next, and I carefully inserted the breast enhancers. The dress slipped over my head easily, and I managed the zipper myself. I stepped into the silver shoes, then fastened the chandelier earrings. The necklace settled just above the curve of my breasts. I dabbed the perfume where Mom had shown me and stood before the mirror, utterly captivated. A profound, shimmering joy filled me. After transferring my essentials to the silver clutch, I walked carefully to the family room. When Mom entered, she quite literally took my breath away. Stunning was an inadequate word. "Ready, sweetheart?" she asked. I could only nod. After a quick call, the four of us left together. Jessica looked lovely in a raspberry-colored dress. Her eyes met mine, and I saw them widen in clear approval. The community center was buzzing. Mrs. Miller greeted us. Beside her stood two young men, Ryan and Daniel. Introductions were a blur. We were seated at a table with two other mothers and their daughters, Amanda and Hannah, both from my school. A jolt of panic shot through me, but Jessica smoothly introduced me as Emily. The evening dragged through speeches. Dinner served, and with it, the questions began. They invited Jessica and me to a girls-only jamboree. I was about to decline when Mom interjected. The real crisis came when Jessica's mother mentioned that I lived right next door. The air shifted. I felt the blood drain from my face. Mom, sensing my panic, suggested we visit the ladies' room. I saw you freeze, she said, but you could be a girl who visits every summer. Emily, look at yourself. You're beautiful. They don't have a clue. Just relax, she added with a sly smile. I saw the way that boy Daniel was looking at you. I am not dancing with him, Mom, no matter what. We touched up our lipstick and returned just as the men were allowed in. Jessica spotted them first. Mom was swiftly asked to dance, leaving me alone. Daniel sat beside me. Grandma said she told you we'd be here, he said. She mentioned it, I guess. Want to dance? I never got a chance to form a refusal. He took my hand, stood, and waited. Rather than cause a scene, I accepted. The music wrapped around us, and after a few clumsy steps, we found our rhythm. When the song ended, we escaped to the patio for drinks. That's when I saw Mom, her hand laced with that man from earlier, and she was laughing as he leaned in to kiss her. A warm gladness for her bloomed in my chest. The evening had been magical, but then Daniel's question sent a jolt through me. Can I take you home? My eyes darted to Mom, now giggling like a schoolgirl. Before I could reply, Jessica and Ryan appeared, and it was settled. The boys would drive us. Mom pulled me aside. Emily, you have your key. Change and stay at Jessica's tonight. In the car, Daniel's arm settled around my shoulders. When Ryan pulled into my driveway, he and Jessica shared a quick kiss. Then Daniel was there. His lips met mine. Soft. Tentative. He didn't pull away, and after a breathless moment, he kissed me again, deeper. My senses swimming, I finally pushed the door open, mumbled a thanks, and stumbled out. Jessica and I burst into my house, breathless and giddy. At her place, we collapsed into laughter. Seeing her real, firm breasts didn't trigger any dysphoria. It felt like a shared secret. I mirrored her, and we stood there for a moment before dissolving into giggles. Curled up with late-night TV, Jessica nudged me. That Daniel couldn't keep his eyes off you. And why wouldn't he be? I retorted. I was the prettiest girl there. Okay, sure, you were pretty, she conceded. For a boy, you make a very convincing girl. You're just jealous. Right. In the morning, I found her mother alone in the kitchen. You looked beautiful last night, Emily, she said. Thank you, ma'am. I made a mistake last night. I'm sorry. Mom said I could just be a family friend who visits, I replied. She studied me, then reached out, squeezing my hand. You're always welcome here, Emily. You've always been a good person, and what you wear doesn't change that. When your mother told me, I was worried. But after seeing you last night, I knew only the clothes had changed. Mom didn't return until almost noon. When she called me home, we had a quiet lunch. It was okay, I said. Except for those speeches. Emily, she began, her tone shifting. That man I was with, Mark, he's an old friend. He wants to get married. But that means I'll have to… My voice trembled. Stay as you are, she finished softly. He's never met my son, but he's seen my daughter, you. I can't tell him the truth, not yet. But he'll find out, I protested, my composure cracking. How can any of this work? Tears streamed down my cheeks. Linda! Mom's voice cut through my panic, her hands gripping mine. Mark believes I have a daughter, and that is exactly what he will have. We know the truth, but you cannot go back. It would be agony. So we have only one choice. We turn you into a real girl. How? I whispered. Is this just because of Mark? Partly, but you are my focus. You've always wanted this. I have a friend who can help, but only if you say yes, Emily. If you agree, there's no going back. A real girl? I asked. A real girl. Okay. In my naivete, I imagined a magical transformation. Reality was far more mundane. For 3 days, I talked to a gentle man who asked endless questions. He recommended treatment and soon I met another doctor. She shattered my expectations with clinical clarity. I can make you look like a girl, but you won't function entirely as one. No periods. You'll take medication to develop your own breasts, widen your hips, and soften your skin. We'll start with small breast implants. As for your manhood, we'll invert it. You'll maintain your body, and when you're older, we can complete the process. Any questions? Just one. When can we start? The procedure took 5 hours. I walked out bow-legged, sore, and euphoric. 2 days later, Mom carefully removed the bandages. Using a mirror, I saw her, my true self, for the first time. My breasts were larger, beautifully shaped and sensitive. Below, the thin hair framed a delicate slit. I swallowed my first pill, then dressed. I saw Jessica every day during recovery. When Mom finally gave the all-clear, I laid my new swimsuit on the bed and dashed across the yard. "Bring your suit," I called. Once in my room, I took her hand and undressed quickly, standing naked before her. Her eyes widened, and she let out a piercing squeal. "Emily, you're a girl! A real girl! How?" "A magic pill," I teased. "Right," she laughed, stripping down to join me. We slipped into our swimsuits and dove into the pool. That day, we became sisters. Mom married Mark, and he proved to be a kind father. That fall, I entered school as Emily, without a hitch. Mrs. Miller encouraged my writing. I never learned if she knew the truth, but it ceased to matter. Daniel still visits, but my heart has found another. The crucible that forged me continues its work, no longer teaching me to be a girl, but to be a woman. And I embrace every lesson,